Hi, Robin. Good evening to our host, to our Onduline staff and management, to my fellow designers and my fellow architects, and of course to all the participants. I'm glad to be here and to share a few insights on sustainable architecture, especially now in the time of COVID. I know some of you are very aware of sustainable architecture, which is a close relative of green building, natural building, and the likes. At present, we are in the era of COVID-19. So we must use sustainable architecture not just to save our environment, but also to fight and minimize the transfer of COVID-19. The very definition of sustainable architecture, green building, and natural building could be searched in Google, the long and the specific version. But for me, the concept of sustainable design in architecture, which we must give a local and simple tone, is simply building something which has less negative impact on our environment for sustainable living. Now, having said that, this is such a broad topic from simple to complex. So let me just touch on three simple aspects that I think is suitable and timely, but I would be focusing only on two design considerations. Well, simplicity or simple, well, which is another word for, well, I know that owners and builders love this, affordability. Simple equals affordability. My three simple aspects in designing a house or structure related to sustainable architecture, which is design, building materials, and of course, technology. Let us focus first on the essential, which is design, which I think that's why we're all here. After considering the client's needs and capacity in general, including the budget, the design, which must have a new hierarchy in our consideration. Natural and well-ventilated spaces. A new standard instead of the usual one window per area with aircon is usually doable. But in this time of COVID, even a small room should have two openings, one inlet and one outlet, wherein a cross ventilation or passive ventilation is produced. This should be the new standard in homes, offices, and structure, of course, with the provision of air conditioning. I would like to emphasize that the air that carries the virus, such as the COVID-19, would dissipate faster if the room or the area is properly ventilated. Well, they did some study in NHK Japan with which you could watch in YouTube. Of course, simple as it may sound to homes, it will be specifically a challenge to buildings, high-rise, and commercial areas. But having said that, it is a challenge, yet doable to modern buildings. As an example, they did this in 1991 in Harare, Zimbabwe, wherein a building was constructed that cools itself, meaning well ventilated. They got to study the biomimicry of termites, wherein the building is self-cooled. So complex, but doable. But I also would like to locally highlight our buildings here wherein I had the opportunity to work with a contractor and DOH wherein the design was so simple yet so effective. The Lang Center of the Philippines just used effective designs such as air wells, light wells in the middle of the structure and then converted to a garden. Simplicity in design is also effective yet affordable. So cross and passive ventilation should be the new standard nowadays, specifically in this COVID era. Okay, in my opinion, there's really a need for a well-ventilated space. For example, if I design something, I design it in such a way na I will be the one who's using it. So if I'm the one who's going to be using it, of course, the room, which is well ventilated, one would save on energy because less use of air conditioning. Two, clients will be very happy. The room would not be so cold, but actually comfortable. Well, that's the key word, comfort. If you will notice, if you use the aircon, chances are your electric bill will go higher. Of course, aside from that, in this time of pandemic, viruses would linger longer in the air if there is no crosswind or it's not naturally ventilated. So for me right now, I would prefer a room that is well ventilated for me and for my family. So I think that's client would want that for their families too. Another aspect wherein it should be placed, wherein we should place a high standard is natural lighting. Natural and well-lighted spaces is another underrated area, but should be used more often. There are many ways of creating or utilizing this, from well-designed windows to skylights. The terms of creativity is sky's the limit. Why do we need natural light? Aside from being cost-effective, as you well know, UV rays is a natural disinfectant commonly used nowadays, from water purifiers to escalator handrails in the malls. So we have this unlimited resources. Let us use it to our advantage. Again, in my opinion, a well-lighted space, particularly a room, dining, living, bedroom, aside from saving electricity, me personally, I like to read with not direct, but sunlight involved, not just the natural, not just the uh, regular light bulbs, but an aspect of a sunlight. It makes me relax. So I want to share that with clients also. My preference hopefully would be the same preference of my client. So I would like to live in a house that is well lit, aside from saving electricity, which is a sustainable way of looking at it. It is also a somewhat, for me, a disinfectant. Uh, as you know, they use UV rays for water purifiers and elevator handrails. So, and for me, I don't know, the room would smell better if it is touched by the sun. So, for me, it's just a personal preference of mine that I would like my clients to experience. Those two simple consideration, natural and well ventilated spaces and natural lighting, should be emphasized in this era of COVID. Now, the other two, which is the building materials and technology, is so broad that it deserves a different topic, which you all know. So in designing a house or structure in this pandemic, let us consider these two things as our top priority. I appreciated sustainable design at an early stage. As I've said, simplicity equals affordability. And most Filipinos, most of my clients, even they're well off, they're also practical. So a well ventilated space, a well lighted space is not only environmentally friendly, but also better in so many ways, in so many aspects. So as a human, we need sunlight for vitamins, natural air for our health. So it's a win-win scenario. You got to save and you get to be healthy. Okay, in my experience as an architect for 20 years, I haven't encountered an client na that is against sustainable design. They first of all, they don't fully understand it. So it's up to us architects to explain the pros and the cons of sustainable design. But at the end of the day, most of them, actually all of them, when you explain sustainable design in terms of how they will save actually in utilities and save the environment, all of them actually, if they can afford it, they will go for it. Eh. So there's no question if they like it or not. It's more of affordability and practicality. So I think if it's affordable and if it's practical for them and they have the means, they usually go for it. The way I explain things to the client, first and foremost, clients has needs. So it's for us architects to explain the solution to their needs. And for me lang naman, it's a bit easier if the solution is simple. So there's a need from the client and there's a simple solution from the architect. Usually it's a good marriage kapag it is well explained and if the needs of the client is actually met. Simplicity and affordability is actually the keys to that. Personally, when I scout for a building material, it should actually answers the basic problem and it should also always be the solution to the problem. For example, we discussed uh, proper ventilation, natural lighting. Of course, those has cons also. What are those? Actually, heat comes in from the glass. So what do? You put filters, you put shades, etc. Even you put plants. So in a particular room, there's also the cons of roofing. So what would we must do is look for a roof that would transmit less heat. So it could be a bitumen, like a bitumen roof or a clay roof. For as long as it would answer a specific problem, less heat, that would be very helpful. I think Onduline has that product, so bitumen roof and clay tiles. All right. At present, as an architect, it's a challenging times. But so let's just say there's a crisis. So we must remember in every crisis, there's an opportunity. You just have to find your niche. So for me, after reading a few books, studying, etc., it's either you double down or you pivot. For me, there's some things I double down in, like in planning, uh, studying, and of course, designing. But I pivot on some things like project management and building construction management. So it's a case-to-case basis thing wherein where's your niche or where should we go? Kasi for me, uh, you have to be practical. We don't want to get the coronavirus. So all my projects are on skeletal force. On-site projects are on skeletal force and some are on hold. And most of my clients, I did advise them, now is not the right time to build, but now is the right time to plan and design. So fortunately for us architects, we are actually in the business of designing. So definitely we'll take a hit, but hopefully if we can find a niche there, we can turn this hit into an opportunity. So for me, I found some opportunities. So hopefully for you, you'll find some opportunities too. Actually, when a client would usually approach an architect, they know na what they want. Even the facade, the looks, somewhat of the materials of what they need. So it's our job as architects to translate that properly. Proper design, uh, proper consultation of materials, and the way we present things that would actually solve their problem. So when they come to you, they don't know what they want. We just have to translate and design it for them. So wala namang big shift, but what I've discussed kanina, the well ventilated and well-designed lighting should be on top of the consideration of all architects. It's not only a sustainable design solution to a problem, but also it's timely because of this pandemic. Kasi viruses float in the air. If it's well ventilated, it won't. Okay, roofing is one major aspect of a house. So if you're going to be practical about it, always get a good quality roof. Uh, Precisely because it's on top. If it fails, if there's a problem, if there's a leak, definitely the lower part would be the ceiling, the floor would be damaged. So don't scrimp on roofing. Get the best value for your buck. So I would suggest a high quality roofing for their needs. Okay. We architects, let us all be ambassadors of sustainable design because as we all know, we are at the forefront of this. So let us use our craft and our profession in conserving our environment for the next generation. This virus is not the first and definitely won't be the last. So looking forward and looking to the future, we must incorporate sustainability and our design considerations together to prepare for the future.